What is up, everybody? This is Matt Cox back with another episode of the Saucetown Investor. Today, we are going to talk about a deal that I did back in early mid 2024. This was a fourplex out in northeast Salem. Actually, it's out State Street, so kind of central Salem, if you will, out toward Lancaster. This was a really unique one in that it was one of the first kind of quote unquote creative deals that I did, and it really opened my eyes to what you can accomplish if you're willing to get creative in the way that you structure some of your deals. For most of us, we buy or sell a handful of houses in our entire lifetime, right? Most people are buying a house to live in. They're not necessarily investing in real estate, or if they are, maybe they own one or two rentals. But the more you can learn this stuff, the more you're going to be able to scale your business. So we often think about when you go to buy a house, in most cases, if it's an investment property, you need to have 25% down. Sometimes you can get away with 20%. But usually 25. If it's a personal residence, sometimes you can do as low as 5%, or even under some programs, you can do 0 or very, very low percent down. But when it comes to the investment world with most lenders, or all lenders, you have to put 20 to 25% down. So with this deal, this is crazy. At least it was to me at the time. How did I get a fourplex, close on a fourplex, become the owner, and actually get a check for $80,000 handed to me at closing? Sounds crazy, right? So you get a fourplex and they're giving you money for taking the fourplex. Sounds backwards. It goes against everything we've ever been taught, right? You buy the house. You don't get handed money when you get the house. So a bit of background on this one. Again, it was a fourplex. It's in Salem. A bit about the seller to give you some context. This seller was an older gentleman. He was not living in the property. He was purely an investment fourplex. He was, like is often the case, people hit a point in life. He was kind of entering retirement where he doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. It's just, we've been over this, but the tenant stuff, the maintenance stuff, he just wants to enjoy his retirement. I don't know if that's at, the bar, or if he's in Aruba or wherever he is, but he doesn't want to own real estate anymore. So we structured this deal in a really interesting way. He had been on market for $825,000. I believe he had gone under contract once. It had fallen apart because this house, or I should say fourplex, had some issues with it. There was some CapEx, some capital expenditures that needed to be spent on. I ended up having to go in, and it wasn't massive, but I poured an immediate probably 25 grand into it, and the roof is close to done, so that's something got to be prepared for. And so this was not a plug and play type deal, if you will. But if you're willing to buy stuff that most other people don't want a part of, right? These turnkey properties, everyone and their mother wants to buy those, and with that, there's going to be more competition for it, and sellers are going to be less flexible. So in this case, he was on market at 825, went under contract, it fell apart because of inspection stuff. Lowered it to 725. I believe 725 with the caveat that it was as is. I believe he went under contract one more time. The buyer didn't perform. It was another, even though he said as is, it was another inspection thing. And that's one note for you guys. If you want sellers to work with you, just be easy to work with. I know that sounds obvious, but if they say they're selling it as is, it means as is. Don't ask for a million repairs. They're going to tell you to F yourself and they'll go back on market, which is exactly what happened to this buyer before me. So we ultimately end up making an offer. And here's what is so unique about this. So the house is priced at $725,000. The bank or the lender that I'm working with went up to, I believe it was 75% loan to value. So that means your loan will be 75% of the purchase price. And it was about $545,000, I believe, is what they lended me. So here's the unique part. The seller agreed to seller finance $300,000. So what's the math on that? Okay, so the house costs $725. I'm getting $545 from the bank, and I'm getting $300 from the seller. So $545 plus $300, I'm getting $845,000 back. The house only costs $725. Now there's about $40,000 in closing costs and stuff like that. So all in purchase $765, including closing costs. I'm getting $845 back, and that's where you get that that when I talk about getting a check for $80,000 at closing. That's what's crazy about this. And the way we structured it, because a lender will not let you generally put a second mortgage on the house right at closing. So what you have to do, or what we did, is we did what's called a promissory note. You've seen them; they usually go along with a mortgage, but in this case, it's off title. It is not attached to the house. And so what that means is it's effectively just an unsecured personal loan. So a secured loan is a loan that is attached to an asset. In our world of real estate, it's attached to a piece of real estate. This loan is not attached to anything. Now, obviously, I need to pay it back, or there's all kinds of stuff he could do, and I'm obviously going to pay him back because I'm not a sociopath, but it is not attached to the Fourplex. So I was able to, and here's the other part, is he lended me that money at 4% interest only. There's a 5-year balloon on it. So what this does is it gives me essentially 5 years to take this asset, which was, and I'll get to this, it was a pain in the ass. There's a reason he was willing to be flexible. Like we talked about, turnkey property, sellers aren't going to do this stuff for you. Their property has become a problem for them. You're taking the problem off of their hands. It's a win-win. We've talked about this on other episodes. He doesn't want to own this anymore. So I get a hold of this place. There's non-paying tenants. There are repairs that need to be done. I mean, it's the first 6 months owning it were frankly a nightmare. But the more of these deals you do, you understand, that a quote unquote nightmare is the norm. You get paid to take on problems and to solve problems. So what we ended up having to do over the course of that, we inherited, there's a fourplex. We inherited 4 tenants, or 4 groups of tenants. 3 of them were bad. One left on their own. By the way, guys, when I say bad, I don't mean that they're literally bad people, although sometimes they are if they're stealing money from you or destroying your building. But in this case, a few of them, one of them left on their own, and I believe the other 2 couldn't pay rent. We tried to work out a payment plan with one guy. He just he couldn't do it. So we ended up having to turn over tenants in 3 of the 4 units. So that's expensive. There's evictions. There's lost rents. You need to budget for that stuff. Most people aren't going to sign up for 6 months of kind of nightmare with a property. And you get into bigger properties. I mean, you talk to some of these guys who are doing 50-unit build. I mean, it might be a nightmare 2 years. And what you call this process, people refer to it as stabilizing the building. And so when a building is stabilized, that means basically there's quality tenants in there, and you're you're at market rents. That's considered a stable building. So after 6 months, we have more or less stabilized this building. We've got what I think are quality tenants in there. We're at market rents. So across the 4 units, from where we bought it at, I believe the global rents, meaning the rents between the rents between all 4 units, we've increased rents by over $1,000, and we have also moved quality tenants into the building. But this stuff is not easy. I'm not saying you can't do it, but if you don't have the time to dedicate this and do it professionally, give it to a property management group. There's times that I think I should just hand my whole portfolio to a property management group as well, and I may actually do that at some point. So that's the story of how I got a fourplex and got $80,000 handed to me at closing. Guys, these type of deals are out there, but again, you have to be willing to have some flexibility on what you're going to buy. Remember, in this business, you're usually getting paid for solving somebody's problem. This seller had a problem. I took the tenant issues off his hands. He didn't want to deal with getting all these people out of there and getting to market rents and all that. Additionally, he's in retirement. And so he gets a $300,000 loan that he's given to me, and he's getting monthly payments on that. So he got cashed out for a portion of his purchase price, right? He sold for $725. So he gets $425 right away, and then he's got another $300 loan outstanding. He got $545 right away, I should say. He's got an outstanding loan to me for $300,000 that he just gets to collect monthly payments on, and I pay him every month. It's passive income, and it's worth noting on these, you want to have your other finances in order too, because this guy did want to see that I was, a reliable person to lend money to. He had never met me before. Lending $300,000 to a stranger is no joke. So he wanted to see that I was reliable, that I'd owned rental properties, and that I was somebody that he could trust to pay him back. He was a bit more diligent about this. I've seen sellers also that they don't look into anything. They just say, "Great, I'll lend you the money at," and they don't really investigate the individual and their reliability as a borrower. So that was a fourplex out on State Street in Salem that I bought in mid 2024. We plan to hold this thing for a while. It's a good performing asset now, and it's a good part of our portfolio, and I learned a ton on that deal as well. So thanks for listening, guys.